So the June update for Back 4 Blood released today, and it is much larger than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to try to just tear through all of this as fast as I can, tell you about what's going on and why it matters, and some things that you might be like, huh, when you read the patch notes, okay? I'm going to try to break it down as quickly as we can and try to make sense of it all, because there's a lot of stuff going on. So let's just get right into it here. This is a free content update, brings you a lot of different things to your gameplay experience, such as new legendary items, and that gets a lot deeper than I think the patch notes really express, so let me get into that once we reach the new features. So another big thing that's going on here is the full deck draw. In case you're not familiar with what a full deck draw is, this is a feature that was introduced into the game with no hope. And basically what it means is you go ahead and you make a deck, and instead of going, well, pick this card, and then next round pick this card, and then next round pick this card, and then this, and then you get all 15 cards at the beginning of the game. Bam. You're on 1-1, you have all 15, and that's just how it's going to be. And then, because this is all how No Hope works if you've played No Hope at all. And then when you're actually in a level, more random cards are going to spawn. So there's a chance that you'll find this card sitting in there, and then maybe you'll find Miraculous Recovery, and then maybe you'll find Natural Sprinter, those card shrines you used to find, and everything costs 500 now. This is the way the game is now. It's a completely different way to play the game. It's drastically different. But from my perspective, it was a much more fun way to play No Hope difficulty. And now it's in the entire game. So go ahead and build up some new ideas and have fun with it. Also, a new thing they added was player kicking. I haven't tested it out yet, but what I want to do is get a group of my friends and then kick Ren out of the group, because I think that'd be really funny. New banners, new burn cards. Oh, new burn cards. Heck, let me load into a level so you can see what the new burn card is. So there's a bunch of new burn cards, including this new burn card selection screen, so you don't accidentally forget to pick it. But if you go into training mode, you can see all the new burn cards. So group hug, squad armor, attachment scavenger, medical supply scavenger, offensive supply scavenger, which is actually behind me right here. A bunch of scav cards. Some things to know about this. Squad armor gives your whole team 4 armor pieces a person. So that's a lot of armor. Like a lot of armor. They also changed Dusty's to say it grants you a higher quality weapon rather than just grants you a random weapon, which is kind of nice. I tried going higher than purple, and you can't go higher than purple. I also did with a legendary. You can't really do anything when you have a legendary. Other things that they added offensive upgrades. So if I were to go ahead and pick offensive upgrade, my offensive items would all be upgraded 1 tier, and I can actually do that for you here shortly. Or in case you'd rather, I can go ahead and pick a primary weapon upgrade, a secondary weapon upgrade, a legendary weapon. Here, I got the upgrades behind me. Or I can pick a legendary attachment. So these are the new burn cards that have been added to the game, on top of the fact that, oh, there's a bunch of burn card changes right now. Another thing that changed, that each kill grants 1 copper up to 750 with hired gun. Another thing to know about this is that hired gun no longer gives copper to everybody on the team. The way hired gun worked before was if one person played it, you could get up to 500 kills, and then each person could get up to 500 copper because of one person playing hired gun. Now, with hired gun, if one person plays it, only that person is going to gain copper from kills. Now, if your teammate goes ahead and kills something, you're still going to get the copper as the person who played it, but your teammate's not. So they made hired guns max value 750, where before its max value was 2,000. So it's a huge nerf to hired gun, especially when you consider that you typically aren't even going to reach 750 kills in a level anyway. The average amount of kills that somebody gets is like, I don't know, 130 in a level, 120, depending on what difficulty you're on. So you're really not going to get 750 even. So very, very different change to hired gun. But I'll go ahead here and I'll select a quick item upgrade. And then what you'll see is that now my quick items are upgraded. They are now green. And I believe that's a permanent change. Something else to note, which is actually really important, is you see how much copper I have in the bottom left-hand corner? Bots now drop copper for you, or I should say just transition it to your inventory. So before the update, I would have like, I don't know, 3,000 on Evangelo here, but now I get 9,000 because all the bots gave me all their copper. A bunch of other stuff going on here as well. Oh, one cool thing is if you go ahead and you take a look at all of these legendary weapons, there is much more detailed information on all of them. So this says significantly slows targets for 1.75 seconds. That 1.75 was not there before. Every single one of these legendary weapons, I believe, has a much more descriptive description to it now. Like the embezzler, the one that anytime you shoot something with it, you get copper. Well, that says it maxes out at 1,000. The damnation tells you exactly how much DPS it does per second with its burn. Every single one of these got a little bit of an update. We have more to talk about with legendary items and all that. But one more thing I want to show you is they made a big change to cost to avarice. I know I'm not going down the patch notes right now. I'll get back there. But if you take a look at cost of avarice, it says copper piles are replaced with warped copper. For each pile that is picked up, that player's damage resistance is reduced by 5%. For every 100 copper by any player, then their move speed is going to be reduced. Their sprint speed is going to be reduced, and their sprint efficiency is going to be reduced. So allow me to show you what that kind of means. If I drop down here, this will be a really good example for you. So I can drop down, whee, and you'll see a bunch of copper piles down here. There might even be a mix of warped copper piles and non-warped copper piles. But if you take a look here, yeah, they actually glow a little bit differently here, don't they? These ones are gold and these ones are white. So this is a regular copper pile. No big deal. And in fact, I'll go ahead and I'll drop my copper over here to really exemplify this for you. So I come over here, right click, get rid of all that. Now I could pick up some copper here, right? So 50, and then now I'm at 100, and you'll see that little red icon in the bottom left-hand corner just kicked in. That's the thing indicating that I'm a little bit slower because I obtained 100 copper. And that'll go times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, all the way up to whatever the heck it was, times 30. See? Okay, so I can drop all these. Now let's take a look at the warped copper piles. So if I pick up a warped copper pile here, there's another one that kicks in, and that's the negative damage resistance of 5. And I pick up another one of these, and then I can pick up another one of these, and it starts stacking. Now you'll see my movement speed's going to get slower just because I'm holding copper, but I'm also losing damage resistance because I picked up a warped copper pile. If I go ahead into here and then I drop all this, I lose the movement speed debuff, but I keep the damage resistance debuff. Only I have the damage resistance debuff because I am the one that picked up that copper pile. Also, when you drop the 300 copper, and it looks like it got added to the other pile here, it doesn't get re-dropped as warped copper. All right, so you don't have to worry about dropping copper and then your teammate picking it up and them being poisoned. It's only going to be the damage resistance on the person who picked up that specific warped copper pile. Okay? I hope that makes sense. The move speeds for everybody who is holding copper. The damage resistance is only for the person who picked up that specific pile. And I guess as long as we're still down here, I just patch notes. Sorry, we were gonna cover you, but let's take a look at some of the other things like chronic injuries. Oh my gosh, look at those. So we actually have new things that kick in with the warp chest. It used to always just be deep wounds and then deep wounds and then deep wounds. Well, now you have new ones. You have chronic injuries, which decreases your trauma resistance and also your damage resistance. There's one of them that's called sticky, and I think that just kind of makes everything about you a little bit slower. Let me go ahead and open this up here and then see if we can get another different one other than deep wounds. And maybe it's not going to be sticky. Oh, we got sticky. Take a look at that. So your reload speed and your weapon swap speed is a little bit slower now. And I believe there is an additional one. And really what I'm trying to tell you here is that there's a bunch of new ones that you can think about other than just deep wounds. Another thing you might see in here right away is a blue tenderizer. So why does this blue thing exist? The reason why this blue thing exists is because initially when all this stuff first came out, legendary weapons were spawning at the beginning of the game, and it was trivializing the rest of the match for them, or for the players. So they were like, well, okay, let's make it so legendary weapons are more likely to spawn later. And then after that, there was this void at the beginning of the acts where there was no legendary weapons. So what they wanted to do was give people legendary weapons at the beginning of the acts while not making it so they're so powerful they don't have to think about picking up anything else for the rest of the game. So that's where these blue legendaries kick in. So these are just a little bit weaker versions of the gold legendaries that you'll also find in these chests. And maybe there's another one on the ground here somewhere. I mean, I'm holding one. As you can see, the gold one still exists, but then now there's also blue versions of them. But that goes a little bit deeper than just the weapons themselves. There's also attachments that are like this as well. So if you go ahead and you take a look here, Needle's Eye, something you might be noticing is there is no negative affixes on these legendary attachments, where before almost every single one of them had something negative about them. Almost all the gold ones now have no negative affixes or very few, which is a great change. But to keep that in mind, when I said that there was a blue legendary weapon, well, now there's blue legendary attachments, and those blue legendary attachments still have some of the old negative affixes on them. So this gives you a reason to upgrade your blue legendary attachment into a gold legendary attachment. Okay? So a lot of things happening, a lot of things changing, and I'll try to get back to the patch notes here. Here's another good example. The Anchor has 100% recoil control, where before I think it had some sort of negative with it. Now it's just 100% recoil control. You never have to think twice about it. So if I go ahead and I do this and I throw it on something that, I don't know, might have recoil, like this scar here, what you'll see is I can just have no recoil whatsoever with no negative side, which is really cool. Oh, and another one here, like the spray and pray. Infinite effective range, no questions asked. It's just better than it was before, which is cool. Oh, actually, something we need to do before I forget is talk a little bit more about burn cards, because this There's a pretty significant change going on in here. If you go ahead and you take a look at the collector's line here, the part where you spend skull totems, what you'll see is that some of these new burn cards cost skull totems. And they cost 1, 2, 3. I think hired gun is in here as well, and it costs 4. So that's what you're going to use your skull totems for now, on top of any unique skins that might show up, like as the new one, the Stone Cold Griller that came in here for Walker, and I believe the new Huckleberry Jim is in here as well. Let me go ahead and take a look right now. I just clicked hang. Jim, if you go ahead and you take a look at the outfit here, items, yeah, this one, you'll see Huckleberry, and I think those will be living in there as well. I don't really know how this all works, because I'm pretty sure burn cards are not a DLC thing, but the hives are a DLC thing, so I don't know if you need to be with someone who has the DLC in order to get skull totems to farm for hired gun. I don't know, either way, hired gun isn't that great anymore anyway, so don't worry about it. But now let's talk about the legendary accessories. There's 6 different legendary accessories, and ooh, that reminds me actually, something that you might not have noticed. Oh my gosh, this is like one of the most exciting parts of the update for me. Is take a look at this wall. There's a new wall. That means they're going to put stuff on it. I don't know what they're going to put on it, but presumably they're going to put stuff on it for us to go ahead and test with in here. But things to keep in mind with these legendary attachments, there are 6 new legendary attachments. There is a new defib, and what the new defib does is it can self-revive you, which is kind of cool. There is a legendary ammo box, and what that does is includes what 100% ammo refill, and then there's a really high percentage chance of there being an offensive item with it as well. There is also a legendary flashbang, which fires off 6 times, and it causes 40% vulnerability to that creature, so it takes a lot more damage. There is a legendary molotov, which goes ahead and throws blue fire out, and anything that gets touched by the fire will then spread more fire to things that aren't even in the Molotov's fire. So it's just this giant chain of death and burning that kicks out of that Molotov, on top of the fact that it lasts a long time and it does a lot of damage, because I think it's what, 30 damage per second, where if you were to go ahead and take a look at like a regular Molotov over here, it's only 10 at base, and it goes higher as it upgrades. There's also a legendary med kit, which heals all of your trauma, all of your HP, and grants you 3 HP cards to you or to whoever you put it on. And actually, now that I think about it, the legendary ammo box provides 3 ammo cards as well, so it's like 3% damage, and then I don't know how much more ammo that would be, but significant percentage. And then finally, there is a legendary bandage, and that is a bandage with a 50% reuse chance that has an aura that will heal everyone, so it's kind of like a group therapy thing, and it heals for the base amount, I believe. Something that I think about these legendary items is that you probably just want to use them as you get them rather than hold on to them forever, because while they are nice, I don't think they're worth necessarily not carrying your 6 grenades that you would have had anyway, right? Or not carrying your 3 defibrillators you would have had. Go ahead and use them as you find them, because otherwise you're just wasting a bunch of pocket slots, unless you find multiple of those legendaries. But I'm pretty sure the legendary attachments only spawn in the corrupted chests, so the chances of you getting a lot of them are actually kind of low. So just use them as you get them. Have fun with them. Oh boy, as long as we're in here anyways, sorry patch notes, we're not going down in order. They did go ahead and change the Magnum here. Go ahead and listen to this. This is gonna be crazy. You ready? Yeah. Ooh, real fast. They also said they changed the Belgian and the TAC so that they don't necessarily have as good a range as they did before. So that's something to keep in mind. It looks like at about 7.5 meters is when it starts to drop off. Here, let's take a look here. Right around here to start to drop. Oh, that's right around here to start to drop off. Yeah, you can see the 8.6s now instead of 8.8s. So that's a nerf that came in that way. The machete, oh gosh, these are all coming back to me as I'm thinking about it. The machete got a big change as well, so let's run on over there. The machete had a huge buff to damage, meaning that it goes ahead and does 23 damage per slice rather than what, the 18 it did before. So that's a huge percentage change. It's going to scale up really nicely. Also, it only uses up 6 stam per swing as opposed to 10 that it did before, which is also really nice. They changed the bat to be 18 base damage now, and its stumble multiplier went from a 3 to a 3.5. Basically meaning it's way better at making things go bonk and then stumble around, which is really cool. They nerfed the fire axe, and we'll go more into the numbers on the fire axe. They also kind of side graded the hatchet here. But basically, we're gonna have a lot to talk about with melee, but the fire axe was overperforming, and they did stuff to make it so it doesn't perform quite as hard. I think this thing scaled at 30% every single time it went from like gray to green, green to blue, blue to purple, so it was out of its mind at the end of the game. And they said they reduced it by 8%, so I don't know if that means it's down to 22% per level, but these are the numbers I can remember. All right, so let's start getting to the list here of things that are right here, because that's a big one. And I covered some of it, but not even close to all of it. So let's get into it here. Weapon drops have been rebalanced to better scale with the full deck draw feature. Makes sense because it's a totally different game now. A lot of things have been changed, including how the difficulties numbers change, but don't worry about that too much. The game kind of feels the same anyway. Ooh, this is a big one though. A toolkit can now be used to unlock a free heal from a first aid cabinet. So really what that means is you find a first aid cabinet on the wall, like say in the toolkit room, and you have an extra toolkit. You walk up to the first aid kit and you go tink, 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 tink. And then suddenly the first aid cabinet has a free heal that anyone can use, which is awesome because again, first aid kits heal for 60 HP and 30 trauma HP. And something that's really nice for this is like utility scavenger, because utility scavenger, I swear, it's been on this roller coaster of how viable it is depending on what's going on in the patch. So that's what I love about patches is like, especially with this game, is it's like a different story every single time a patch comes out. And now the story right now is that utility scavenger stock is going up because you can go ahead and find 15 toolkits that you only really ever going to use 2 of anyway, and instead those toolkits can be used as free heals, and healing is a big part of your economy, so utility scavenger is looking like it's at an all-time high again, which is awesome. Okay, let's keep moving here. Improvements made to movement smoothing. I don't know what that means. Remove damage rounding up to 1.0. So I'm assuming what this means is that damage over time sources like acid pools, I don't know, maybe fire, stuff like that might have been rounding up to 1, which made them maybe more powerful than they were supposed to be. And then that would mean that damage reduction was not working with it properly. So I'm assuming that this just goes ahead and makes it do what it's supposed to do. Silent Snitcher's achievement changed from 1,000 to 100, so a lot of people probably just got a free achievement today. A bunch of other stuff here. Let me scroll down through here, because again, there's a lot to cover. A lot more than I thought there was going to be. So let's talk about Heng here. So Heng's very different, and in fact, if you go ahead and you take a look at his card, it even talks differently here. And this is a huge change for Heng. In fact, I have a whole video planned about something you can do with Heng right now that is happening in this patch, which is kind of crazy and kind of broken and a lot of fun. And if you have somebody on your team who is really good at taking damage all the time, we have a perfect build for you. Anywho, let's go ahead and look at Heng here. So if you look at Heng in his new drip that he has here, people say drip. Anyway, Heng is a cleaner who goes ahead and now has the chance to spawn an accessory when he's hit by a ridden, and this chance increases with the damage amount. Now, if you're paying attention, you're like, oh, well, that's cool. It increases with damage amount. That's the thing I remember. But it says when hit by a ridden, not hit by a mutation. So this literally means anything that does damage to him can cause him to spawn an item. And it gets really broken when he's downed because your health pool skyrockets when you're downed. So you can make a lot of items. I have a whole build about just dying a lot, and it's perfect. So let's talk about some of the chances of this stuff happening. If you go ahead and you take a look over here, let's flip it around, there is a 10% chance that once he's at least at 5 damage, that something's going to spawn. And then I'm assuming there's maybe a scaling between 5 and 50 damage that goes up to 20%. And then damage higher than 50, there's a 33% chance. So anytime Heng takes at least 5 damage from anything, he has a 10% chance to spawn an item. Any item, by the way, which is awesome. I think it'd be really cool if Heng could go ahead and spawn a legendary item every once in a while. I think that'd be a fun thing for Heng. But right now he can spawn a lot of items. So his economy is insane right now, especially if you build him out that way properly. Holly's abilities have been refactored. We felt that Holly was going ahead and being limited into the melee thing. And let me tell you, melee got a lot of changes this patch. Don't worry about them. People are freaking out about them. We'll talk through them. But holy man, did melee really go through some changes. So if we go ahead and we take a look at Holly here, let me go through the changes. Her team effect used to be plus 25 stam for everybody on the team. Now it's plus 5 damage resistance, plus 5% damage resistance. Her personal stat used to be plus 10% damage resistance. Now her personal stat is 25 stamina. So nobody's getting stamina buffs out of Holly anymore. And then they changed the stamina on kill to be health on kill, which means Holly is very hard to take down if she is killing things enough, which in my mind is a buff because when you consider that there's a 15 card system which helps you deal with stamina, And on top of the fact that there isn't really a card that replicates what Holly has here now, other than that one where you're in critical health and you don't want to be in critical health anyway because you get slowed. This is a huge buff to Holly from my perspective. There is so much to talk about here in terms of cards. Oh boy. Let's go ahead and get into it here. So I'm just going to go ahead and try to tell you what I know here off the top of my head. So if you take a look at Adrenaline Fuel, this is one of the ones that got changed. So before it was 7 stamina over 7 seconds anytime you killed something. Well, now there's also the 5 stamina instantly. So this is basically what's missing from Holly and then just stuffing it in there so anybody can use it. But there's a lot of things. Oh god, a lot of things that have changed. And I'm just gonna, you know what? I'm not even gonna look at the patch notes. I'm just gonna go through it this way and see what I can remember. How about that? Let's get that hippocampus running. Is that the part of the brain that's good with this type of crap? So, cross trainers got fixed. It was doing 40% stamina regen, and now it only does 20 like it's always said it has. Sorry, that's probably my fault because I'm the one who brought it up. My bad. They changed Brazen to no longer have the negative damage resistance. It just doesn't have that anymore. And they also nerfed it a bit, so that's 20% melee attack speed instead of 30. And they also changed the melee stamina efficiency, so it kind of looks a lot like Slugger now, doesn't it? They changed Meth Head, and they changed Meth Head a lot. So, honestly, I think the best way to talk about Meth Head is just to show it to you, because I think people are freaking out about this card specifically. So let's go ahead and reread Meth Head here. So what it does now is each melee swing, not kill, melee swing grants 5% melee speed and 5% stamina efficiency for 6 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. Your melee attacks no longer stick in tough enemies. So literally, any swing. So I can just go, ha, and you'll see Meth Head, Meth Head, Meth Head, Meth Head, Meth Head. Pretty cool. And it can stack up to 10 times. Something else you might be noticing is that you can just keep resetting it. Ta-da. And now I'm back up to 10. So you can just be walking around and just maintain it that way. Your stamina regen is going to keep this guy online, even if you aren't really killing anything, which is kind of cool. You can just keep doing this. It's super sustainable. It's a little weird to do, but you can keep Meth Head stacked up if you want to. So something you could do is go ahead and make sure you have stacks before you start swinging this chonker, because, yeah, take a look at that. Look at how much I'm not using up. Because the new Fire Axe uses up 25 stamina, aka a whole bar right here. But you can see with 10 stacks of Meth Head, it's not even doing anything close to that. And once you're at 10 stacks, well, that is, what, 50% stamina efficiency and 50%... Oh, wow, this is actually a buff-ish. So this is 50% melee swing speed and 50% stamina efficiency, where before it was like 40 and 30, right? For, I think, efficiency, or no, for speed and then efficiency. So this is actually a overall buff to Meth Head. You just have to make sure you're swinging it up and charging it up. So I think, again, people are a little concerned about how some of these are listed, but melee is still in a good spot. Don't worry. Let's keep going through all the other changes I can remember here. Rousing Speech got a huge change. So teammates are healed for an additional 10 health when revived, plus 50% team revive speed, plus 10% reduced team in-cap trauma. So, no more losing your offensive slot, which is amazing. Suddenly, Rousing Speech is a pretty interesting looking card, and it doesn't completely cripple your ability to play with offensive accessories or just engage with that part of the game, which is really cool. IMO. Run Like Hell got changed, but I think it's more of a formality than anything else. If you look in the patch notes, it's like, instead of it deactivating, it's just activating. It's very weird. I think it's basically the same card, though, unless I'm mistaken. Breakout got changed. It used to take 3 seconds to break out of something with Breakout, and only takes 2, so that's a really nice change for Breakout as well. Side note, I'm really curious how Charitable Soul works with the new Legendary Medkit, because I think the Legendary Medkit heals for 1,000 and also 1,000 trauma, so are you going to get like 500 and 500? I think that'd be kind of funny. Anyway, a big change here is for Vanguard. Vanguard now heals regular HP instead of temporary health HP, and its range was reduced from 25 down to 10. So you might be like, oh god, that's a huge nerf because temporary health is so good. Yes-ish. Really what this means to me is that overheal is even more important than it was before, because once you reach max HP, well, then your overheal starts turning regular healing stuff like this into temporary health again. And also, Vanguard is now affected by healing efficiency. So this can go higher than 1, and then also it can turn into overheal as well. So, side grade, because temporary health, especially on things like Biohazard, can kind of suck in those scenarios where regular health is still going to do regular health stuff. So, side grade, IMO, not a downgrade. Like, I think people are a little bit nervous about some of this stuff. combat knife got changed in a couple ways. Okay, I'm trying to remember all this stuff. So the combat knife now fires slower now. Ammo for all got a buff. It's 2.5% team damage now. I don't think I'm going to put this in my deck, but if I find it, I'm more likely to buy it now. Batter Up got changed completely. Completely. And now it's called Soften Up. So instead of providing 40% melee damage and 5 HP, now it reduces the damage of the target that you're hitting. So I believe in No Hope, a monstrous tall boy can hit for 92. Thanks for the follow. But if you were to go ahead and hit it enough times where it's 50% reduced damage, it's going to do like, I don't know, 14 less damage from that 92. So it's a way to go ahead and make it so melee is doing something else other than just doing a lot of damage. And then speaking of adjusting damage things, melee got a lot of changes. So Spiky Bits here now provides plus 20 melee damage, flat, not 20%. So in practice, what this does is it means, like, let's say you're punching something with your fist. Usually that used to only do 1 damage. And then if you had Spiky Bits, it'd be like 1.2 because it's only 20% more of 1. Well, now it's boom, 21 damage. And you can hit something in the head and do double damage. So Spiky Bits allows you to turn your bash into something that can reliably kill a lot of Ridden, which is a really nice buff for Spiky Bits. And especially when you consider that a lot of weapons never were even reaching an extra 20 damage off of Spiky Bits, because you'd have to have a melee weapon that did 100 damage in order to get 20 damage out of it, right? Because of 20%. Well, now it's just a flat 20. So this is really nice for the bats. It's really nice for the machetes, and it's really nice for your fists. Now, something you might be wondering is about the stumble multiplier on the fists, because the way the stumble multiplier works is if you punch something, you do 1 damage. Well, you have a stumble multiplier of 40, so you're doing 40 stumble damage. Well, does that mean if I'm doing 21 damage, it's 21 times 40? No. Doesn't work that way. The stumble multiplier doesn't get messed in with that. You're still doing the same amount of stumble as you were doing before, so don't get too excited about it. Mean Drunk is something you can get excited about, though, because they got rid of the lack of sprint on it. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You just have 40% more melee damage. I think this is really nice because it kind of helps offset what people might be missing off of Batter Up, and you don't have to worry about losing your sprint anymore. This is arguably one of the fanciest changes that I think happened in this patch is Heavy Hitter. Melee hits always stumble Ridden the first time they are hit. This effect can only occur once per target. So this works with your fists, it works probably with your knife, your melee weapon. Pah! They're stumbled. Ta-da! Which buys you a ton of time in a lot of different scenarios. This does work while you're downed. Also, it works only, again, once per target. So if 4 people are running Heavy Hitter, at least from what I was testing out, it's not like one person can hit the target, and then the second person, and then the third person, and then the fourth person all having Heavy Hitter. It's, again, once per target like the card says. I was hoping it was going to be once per person, but no, it's once per target. They changed Berserker a little bit to make it so you don't get sprint speed anymore when you kill stuff, but that's not that big a deal because who's sprinting around using Berserker anyway? And then they also changed how Berserker stacks up a bit when you are accumulating stacks of it, and you'll notice that when you're in the game itself. Heavy Attack no longer does that weird lunge forward when you use it, which is really nice. That's one of the things we requested. We're like, can we please stop doing that forward? And doesn't do that anymore, which is nice. Sunder and Battle Lust, again, all these melee cards got a lot of big changes, right? So Battle Lust no longer heals for, what was it, 2 before? Now it's only 1, but it also heals a little bit of trauma. I don't know how I feel about 0.1. It might still be a little low because it's like 10 Ridden for 1 trauma. I don't know, maybe it works out better than I think, but on paper, I don't really know how I feel about it. And then again, what's nice about this whole idea of healing regular health is once you have overheal, you can heal into temporary health on top of just restoring your regular HP, which is really, really nice. Now, Sunder got a big change as well. Sunder, in my mind, kind of got a nerf here. So melee hits cause the target to take 3% increased damage to a maximum of 15%. Well, first off, Sunder was just doing 20% increased damage before, so that is just a straight nerf. But now it has to build up to 15. So in my mind, this is a nerf in almost every single way. But there is a cool part that was added. Melee hits that destroy armor have a chance to create usable makeshift armor. So I believe where this gets really nice is not necessarily on a mutation or a breaker or anything like that, but if you punch a armored common in the head, Sunder starts becoming really interesting. You don't need to have Charisse on your team to get that effect. I think Charisse still kind of does it better because you don't have to commit a whole card to it. But if you don't have Charisse on your team and you want to play melee, Sunder can let you get some of the benefits of armor, which is really nice. Also, another card that got changed is Face Your Fears. Kind of the same treatment as everything else. Heal 1 temporary health whenever you kill a Ridden within 2.5 meters. I don't know if this is affected by healing efficiency, though. Power Strike got a change where it can go ahead and affect Stumble if you hit armor, which is kind of interesting. I don't really know how often I'm going to feel that change, but we'll have to test it out a little bit more. It is in the patch notes. And what else do we got in here? Oh, that's kind of interesting. Oh, see, this is stuff where I go through this and I actually look through it all and I'm like, oh, I didn't expect to talk about this in this video. So double grenade pouch. So in last patch, one of the questions we had was, well, does minus 5% move speed also mean sprint speed on these cards? Because, well, move speed is different than sprint speed now. We went over that in a previous video, but what's interesting here is it looks like they're like, oh, yep, we forgot to put that in there. Let's make sure we do minus 5% sprint speed on double grenade pouch, but it's not on something like shoulder bag. And you really start to wonder, like, how this stuff is out-programmed, right? Where it's like, is this what's going on, or can these be text errors, all that type of stuff? Oh, money grubbers did not get a direct change, but it definitely has a very different feeling to it now, and we'll talk about that in the copper part of the patch notes. Ooh, other things that changed here. Mugger and Highwayman got a buff, so there's now a 5% chance to spawn razor, wire, or ammo, and there's a 5% chance to spawn ammo or a molotov. Let me tell you why this exists. So, oh, and one other really nice thing is that these cards actually spawn shotgun ammo now, which they weren't before. At least that's what the patch notes say, so that's really nice, because you could never get shotgun ammo before. Like, come on, man, I'm just choking here. But why did they buff these when it already seemed like it was so OP to begin with spawning items? The reason why spawning items seemed so OP before was because I believe Hoffman and the Pinata card had this weird bug where their percentages to spawn stuff actually increased over time, or the more they got used. So they started getting really like exponentially powerful. So since they fixed that, they're like, oh, well, maybe we need to go ahead and buff these two cards a little bit. And that's why these went up. Okay? Something that changed, oh my god, this is a big change here when it comes to copper. Copper now has a set amount of piles that are going to spawn every single difficulty, and we'll talk about that in the patch notes. We'll look at the exact numbers here. But the way Copper Scav works now, what I was told from TRS is that Copper Scav is going to add 2 more piles to the map, and they're both medium piles. Okay? So that's 100 copper per person, 400 for the team, if they're both picked up. Which means you can exactly calculate how many more piles of value you're going to get out of money grubbers. Okay? Because again, it's 2 extra copper piles that spawn with Copper Scav per Copper Scav card that's played. That's what I was told. I got to test stuff and see if there's any weird stuff happening with toolkit rooms and stuff like that. But that's what I was told. Safe room recovery got a change, and it stacks now. At least it says it's supposed to stack. So this could be a really nice card now, because before the problem with it was that if 4 people played safe room recovery, only 1 safe room recovery would activate. So 3 people basically had a wasted card in their deck, which is a really cool change for safe room recovery now. And then there was one other card that I think got changed that I must have missed as I was going through all this. Trigger control? Yeah. So precision kills with guns grant plus 0.5 accuracy until the end of the level. So pretty much says what it does. I don't know how I feel about it, because if you go ahead and you take a look at accuracy here, right? Like 20% accuracy, 10% weak spot, 50% aim speed, or 30% accuracy. So in order to match this card here on the accuracy front, you have to get 40 precision kills. In order to match optics enthusiasts, you have to get 60 precision kills. So I don't know how I feel about it, because again, the precision kills. If it was any kill, I might be a little more like, ooh, but precision, I don't know. Because like the whole point of accuracy is so you can have more precision anyway. So I don't know how I feel about it. And it doesn't really, based off of the testing we with ADSing, it's not going to affect ADS that much anyway. And again, when you compare it to something like optics or front sight, you just have to do way more work to get the same effect. One thing to know about the combat knife, though, is that it no longer is going to cleave with multiple ridden. So that's a really big change with the combat knife. Womp, womp, womp. Honestly, it almost feels like punching is going to be a better alternative, since if you just have spiky bits in your deck, which you're probably going to have in there anyway if you're going to be running a melee deck, you can just probably kill most stuff. Where I see combat knife still being kind of nice is if you're trying to still run a fire axe, but then you want to be able to one-tap something like a festered ridden in the head. That's where combat knife might still be kind of nice. But combat knife definitely got its stock lowered in this patch. And then, again, if you're confused about what this means, attack speed increased to 0.75 instead of 0.5. What this means is, picture you can do 1 attack per second, and then your attack speed's 1. Well, if your attack speed is 0.5, well, 0.5 goes into 1 2 times, so that means you can attack twice in 1 second. But, so now what this means is, instead of being able to fit 2 attacks in 1 second, you can fit like 1.5. So it's just it means your attack speed is slower at the end of the day, in case this confused you. This is not a buff, this is a nerf. Oh yeah, medical professional. Trauma is now healable with medical accessories while at full health. what this means to me is that, like, you know that whole thing that you had to do beforehand where your teammate was at full health in the safe room, but you couldn't heal them, so you had to open up the safe room door, shoot them in the foot, and then heal them? I think this just makes it so you don't have to do that anymore. I think that's really what that does. Oh, pure chaos. So this card now reduces health and temporary health gains by 50, was previously 75. So the card was just reading wrong. 75 might have been like close to, I can't remember. It might have been 75%, but now it's supposed to accurately do 50%. And it also says, if you look at the card's different. It says healing by 50%, not healing efficiency. So I don't know if there's a reason for that word change there. Oh, here's another one. Team health got reduced to 7 team health from 10. So you know that team health that you can buy in the shop where it's like, here, have 10 health for 1,000 gold. Well, or 1,000 copper. Well, now it's 7. And I think that makes sense because you could really just scale out of control with some of the team health stuff. Volatile Ridden no longer have explosive damage fall off. I don't know what that means, but in my mind, it's like if you got hit by a Volatile Ridden farther away, it wouldn't hurt as much. But now it's like it's going to hurt just as much as it would if you're sitting there giving the Volatile Ridden a kissy. Because something you could do in the past was if you had a fire axe that has a 2.5 meter range rather than like a machete that has a 2 meter range, you'd feel less pain. Because you could be in situations where you're going to have to hit them in the head no matter what anyway, because there's just too many of them. So, like, specifically like the stairs on T5. So I think this makes it so Volatile Ridden are just going to hurt more. So watch out. Ouchies. Now, there's going to be a bunch of balance updates here. And really what they all mean is that they're adjusted for the 15 card format. The ones that really are going to matter a lot, at least from my perspective, are these copper ones, because now we have very exact numbers. So Recruit now spawns with a static amount of each copper pile. Veteran, Nightmare. They don't say anything about No Hope, but I'm going to assume No Hope's the same way. So what this does, very interesting, is you get 10 small, 3 medium, 1 large on Recruit. So what that means is 250 copper, right? Because small piles are 25. 150 copper because the medium piles are 50. 1 large pile, which is 100 copper. So you know exactly how much copper is going to spawn in any level. Unless you're running Copper Scav, we're going to do a toolkit room. Those make things a little bit different. I think the toolkit room might change this up because it did in previous patches. So this gives you a very accurate idea of what your economy can look like. And if you go ahead and you consider that 10 small piles is only like an extra 160 copper from money grubbers, that's not cool for money grubbers. So that's where Copper Scav starts to look really interesting with these changes here, because it makes it so your money grubbers can have more value. What I'm not sure about is if Money Grubbers works on the warped copper piles with Cost of Avarice. I haven't tested that yet. But Cost of Avarice is no longer going to be doing insane things for people's economy because not everybody's benefiting off of just a lot of little coppers everywhere. Because again, only the person who picks up the warped copper pile gets the extra copper. So Money Grubbers went way down in this patch. I still think it's really, really useful. It just needs a lot more help than it did before. Okay. Oh, yeah, they changed the M1A. The M1A got a buff. It does 45 damage at base now instead of 38. I totally forgot about that. A lot of these weapons fire faster now. I showed you the Magnum fires a little bit faster, but the M19 is like that as well. Now, they changed things on the fire axe here. Oh, something about balance changes on No Hope. Did I miss this? Okay, there's actually a couple funny things. So, weird things that I noticed in No Hope. One is that snitches can be stumbled now. I'm kind of sad because I kind of liked that they couldn't be stumbled in No Hope. I don't know why they're being stumbled in No Hope, but they can be stumbled in No Hope now, at least when you're using things like Heavy Hitter or just meleeing them. I don't know if that was intended, but that's definitely happening now. One other funny thing that I missed here is sleepers can once again call hordes in Veteran. So watch out, Veteran players. Those sleepers are going to get you. It's funny that they're going back and forth. We had a whiplash here, man. Oh, yeah, but one other big thing with No Hope that got changed, and maybe this is in the fixes section of the patch notes, is that the stumble multiplier, or the stumble resistance, I should say, on mutations got increased. So now they have a 40% resistance instead of a 25% resistance to stumble, which is actually very reminiscent of Old Nightmare, if you're familiar with that. But either way, I think it's a good change for No Hope. It probably should have, I think it was supposed to be like that when No Hope first came out. So they changed the fire axe to make it so it does less damage and it costs more stamina. The machete got a big buff, which we talked about. Oh yeah, the tenderizer recovery time changed. So I think that whole action where you hit something and it's gonna like reload the dang thing, that's faster as how you read this. The bat does more damage, does more stumble damage, so it's a buff. The hatchet got a side grade, costs more stamina, but now it has a weak shot multiplier, and also its stumble ratio got changed as well. So that's a little bit of a nerf on that side. So again, kind of a side grade on the hatchet. Gives a little bit more of a personality. IMO. And again, something to keep in mind with the hatchet is you do move very quickly when you're using it. So that's something else that kind of goes to the hatchet's personality. This is the rare tier weapon that we talked about before. Those blue weapons that can spawn in that are legendaries. Same thing with the legendary attachments. They can be blue versions of them now. The bots got changed, so you drop copper. Yeah, we talked about that. One thing that's cool out of the UI updates is that the progress bar that now shows over cleaners when they're doing something. So if they're using a toolkit or rescuing somebody off the wall, there'll be like a little bar that's going on above their head that shows that they're performing that action. It's just a little nice thing. Oh, they also changed a little bit more of the UI where you can see how much higher the score rating of the weapon is on the ground. So it's like either green or red now. I don't think those score ratings mean a whole lot, but it is a nice to see, like, oh, that's a nice weapon over there. I do believe there was also a change with the UI when it comes to skull totems. I think if you mark a skull totem now, there'll actually be a little skull icon on it, which is nice to help you differentiate between regular pings versus skull totem pings. Now, there's a lot of bug fixes in here, and let me just see if I can parse through the ones that you're probably going to be super interested in. One other thing that was a really big change in these patch notes, which maybe I skimmed over, but I do remember reading it earlier, is that the attachments that spawn in the match are now going to be scaled based off of where you're at in the act, meaning that you're way less likely to get like a really awesome purple attachment at the beginning of the act. So no more purple stumbles, or very rare purple stumbles sitting in 1-1. So that is a difficulty change that'll make everything just a little bit harder. I don't know where that is in here, but that's definitely a big change. That was a ooh, ooh moment when I saw that. Oh, they made it so warped item chests don't stack all on top of each other. That's really nice. I did notice that when I was testing stuff. It's much more spaced out, which is way less annoying. They also fixed like the double pickup bug. I know that was a really big one that people had problems with in the last patch, so you don't got to worry about that anymore. They fixed a few of the cleaner issues, so that whole thing with Walker where if he marked a mutation, it wasn't causing trauma damage, that's fixed up. They fixed the whole health decay thing with Mom. I'm still not entirely sure what was going on there. Fixed an issue causing, oh yeah, so this was Hoffman spawning too many items, and then again, Hang's a little interesting. This might still be happening while you're down. I don't know. We'll see. But Hang's, we're going to have a whole video about Hang, so you just wait for that one. Some other notable things that they fixed were Bravado going ahead and healing even though somebody had maxed out trauma, which definitely shouldn't have been happening. They also fixed the bodyguard friendly fire thing to make it so you basically were invincible because of bodyguard, which is kind of silly. Ooh, fixed an issue where temp health was not affected by healing efficiency. So maybe Face Your Fears is affected by healing efficiency now. Ooh, either way, I still think Face Your Fears is kind of lackluster compared to Vanguard and Battle Lust, just due to the nature of being able to heal and get temporary health due to overheal. Oh, one of the ones that they fixed was that sometimes if an urchin spat its mine, it could get stuck to you, and then you had to run around with it and take a lot of damage. I'm sad they fixed that. I liked that one. Another thing they fixed with the urchins was that the urchins could destroy propane and gas tanks with their mines. I like that they could do that too. I don't know. Put them back in. Those were features, not bugs, IMO. So I obviously didn't read off every single line in excruciating detail here, but I think I covered a lot of the ones that players were thinking about the most. So if you want to go ahead and read these in all the detail that you like, there will be a link in the description down below for the patch notes. So go ahead and take a look at that. If you have any questions or anything you want to contribute, or maybe there's stuff that I missed, go ahead and put it in the comments down below. Another thing to keep in mind that we did go ahead and figure out and test is that, you know, these new legendary accessories, you can go ahead and down your own character, control a bot, and then pick up those legendary accessories, complete the level, and then that bot is infinitely going to have a legendary attachment, or legendary accessory, excuse me. So if you give them a legendary defibrillator, they are basically invincible and will never die. On top of the fact, I think you get, oh yeah, and then you can go ahead and put the legendary med kit on one of them, and then they keep healing you, and then you just get 3 health every single time. Like, there's a bunch of goofy stuff that can happen because of it. It's probably going to get fixed. Or no, maybe not. You know what? Screw it. Don't fix it. It's a fun little solo queue thing, or that you have to go ahead and do a lot of work to make happen anyway. So whatever, keep it in the game. I don't care what they do. But that's something you can do right now. Whew. Anyway, a lot of stuff happened in this update. Way bigger than I thought it was going to be. Probably losing my voice. I've been talking so long. Thank you guys for watching. Please consider subscribing if you found this useful. And if you want to see other videos from me about Back 4 Blood, or we're covering a lot of Evil Dead as well. And then with that, I'll see you guys in the next video that we do around here.